few years.
Mm-hmm.
I get pretty vocal, let's put that away. So it's nothing personal, and I don't have a grudge against anybody, but the fact of the matter is there is a lot of things that's happened that should not have happened.
Well, we have found that some of your World War II veterans are a little bitter about a few things too. So it's that's okay. It's your story.
Now, is there clear on his glasses?
Not at all. He's
Okay.
fine.
You want me to take them off? I
No,
can
no,
take
you're
them off.
fine. If you know, looking at her, it's okay. We just didn't want you looking into the.
All right, we're set.
You're set.
Today is November 13th, 2002. We're at the Mary L. Cook Public Library in Waynesville, Ohio for the Veterans Oral History Project. We'll begin today if you would give us your name and your rank when you served.
My name is Ronald Baldauf. I was a Spec 4 during years 69 through 71. Although I never seen battle, I did sustain an injury. I got into a fight with a truck, so I was laid up for several months because of that.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about the circumstances when you entered the service?
Well, when I went into the service, I could have got out of it. All I had to do was step forward and just let someone know that I was married at the time. It was my understanding they were drafting. I was in the last bunch of married men with children, which I didn't have a problem with that. In my heart and my soul, I felt like I had an obligation to the United States to do my duty for everybody in my country, like a lot of people during my time. I know there were several people that had the same feelings I did. Even though they weren't ready to join the service, they were glad that they got drafted because they just felt that they owed something to their country. Their dads had been in the service and they'd spent Second World War, and some of it lost family, like I had. And it was just a great privilege for me to do this. So I went down for my physical, and the same day I ended up in Fort Dix, New Jersey. I had to call my wife at the time and say I won't be home for supper. And explain to her that I had went on and went into the service because I felt like it was my obligation. Unfortunately, things turned out to where, even though I didn't see, I was on orders to go to Vietnam, but I came home and they had my wife's paperwork messed up, and Congressman Whalen helped me get rescheduled, and I got sent to Germany, which I thought, you know, okay, well that's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. Well, in the process, about a month after I'd been in Germany, I ended up being in a tractor-trailer accident, and I was laid up for several months. And basically, most of my time was spent in the hospital.
Okay. Now, at the time you said you had children also?
Yes.
How many?
Had one.
Had one child. And so you were a young married man out employed, and then
I worked for General Motors at the time.
Okay. And you were from this southern Ohio area?
Yes.
Okay. And you spoke, you had lost some family members in the service before?
Yes, I had.
Who was that?
I had lost a couple of uncles, and I'd had, most of my family had been in the service, either in one sense or another. My father was in the Air Force, and then I had, my uncle had been at Normandy, and he'd been in for a fight of his life, and he actually never would talk about it. And I never realized really how much it would affect you until after I was released from the service. Because I think the Army or the Navy or Marines or whoever you served with, I think that you have a certain amount of pride, but in the same sense you have feelings that you save for yourself and yourself only.
So you said you were involved in an accident when you were in Germany. What was your job as far as day-to-day functions there?
I was a tractor-trailer driver.
Okay. And then what happened with your injury?
I was on the border of Germany there, and I went to get out of the truck, and there had been a real hard sleet and ice storm, and when I put my foot on the running board of the truck, I just fell, and my knee hit the ground real hard, and I knew I'd messed it up, but I didn't know how bad it was until later on that night. When I went to get out of bed, I needed to go to the bathroom, and when I wanted to get out of bed, my leg had swelled up bigger than my head, and I couldn't move. And unfortunately, I had to go to the bathroom, so in the process, I couldn't get my pants on because my pants wouldn't fit over my knee. And I went on to the bathroom. I had to go down an aisle to go to the bathroom, and unfortunately, at that time, a colonel and his wife happened to show up. And I explained to him, I says, you know, I have to go to the bathroom, and I've got an injury here, and I don't know what to do about it. And he seen that I had some problems, and he called them, and they took me over to the dispensary, where they had took some x-rays and found out that I had damaged my leg quite a bit. And I couldn't drive anymore, so they sent a man to pick me up, and I rode back in a truck to get back to Kaiserslautern, Germany, where I was located at, where I was based at. And I went to the hospital, and they operated on me, and I was in there for, I don't know, for at least a month. But when they operated on me, they, for some reason or other, they put my cast on too tight. And I come a hair losing my leg because of it. And actually, the doctor had come in and told me I was going to lose my leg, and I said, you're not taking my leg off. That's all there is to it. Unfortunately, I didn't think it would bother me the rest of my life after I got myself back to the States and was out of the service, but old wounds seem to have a history of coming back to you. Well, after I'd been back to work and had got 20-something years in at General Motors, and then my knees just broke down on me. And I've been plagued. I've had 2 total knee replacements done now, and neither one of them's helped me. Now my left leg went completely berserk, and they're wanting to do an operation on that one, and I just won't have it done. I've seen too much pain, and nothing good has ever come out of it. And unfortunately, I've had to argue in order to get the VA hospital or anybody to even look after me.
Did they perform the operation?
No, they didn't. I didn't trust them. I went to the VA hospital and had my leg drained off a couple, 2 or 3 times, and they really treated me really cruel. So I had pretty good insurance with General Motors Insurance, so I decided I would stay on the outside. Well, there came a time when I was forced to retire from General Motors because they said they didn't have a job for me anymore. Although I was willing to work any job they had, I wanted to get my 30 years in. They just wouldn't allow it. They just told me that they would give me a medical retirement, and that was the end of that. So I was drawing a small pension at the time, and I went ahead and took the retirement. Although it bothers me this very day, I still get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it just one hassle after another, and every time I went to the VA, it seemed like you couldn't get them to do anything. I fought for a year to get them to drain my knee off, and they wouldn't do it. I could go to the outside and get it done in 20 minutes time. But I got into it with the VA hospital in Dayton there, and off of 3rd Street. But in the process of doing that, I thought they was being very rude and was treating me mean. So I used a small tape recorder, and I tape recorded the incidents and stuff that happened to me. Well, whenever they found out that I was tape recording the incidents, the guy that's in charge out there told me not to come back anymore. So now I'm a veteran. I draw disability, but I'm not allowed to go to the VA hospital there.
Is that just that particular hospital?
Just that particular hospital. But I don't understand it. I mean, all I done was told the truth. I had information to back me up, but nobody wanted to hear the truth.
Did they have some sort of mediation?
No.
No.
I
So
went
what
to,
is a normal recourse for a veteran who has a problem with the VA?
You're supposed to go to the patient advocate. And all through my process, I found out one thing. Once you get past the patient advocate, you don't have any resources to outlet your problems, your feelings, or anything, because it's left up to the patient advocate to try to handle it or resolve it in one sense or another. And if they decide not to help you, there's nothing you can do about it. So, unfortunately, I squawked and I griped enough to where I finally got them to let me talk to the guy that was in charge out there. And when he found out that I wanted to see him, and whenever the patient advocate told him that I had tape record some of the things that they had done to me, he just told me that he didn't want to talk to me and there was nothing I could do about it, and he didn't want me to come back to the hospital again.
Not even with legal representation?
Not even with, well, if I went out there, I had to be escorted by a police officer. So, needless to say, if I had to go through that much trouble, I didn't want to go back to the VA hospital.
Was there objection that they felt the injury was not related to your service, it was related to your job?
No, there was never any problem with the fact that the injury was because of the service. That was never an issue whatsoever. The only issue they had with me was the fact that I would tell them exactly how I felt. If I wasn't being treated right, I would go. So I'd say, look, I've been sitting here for 4 hours. You know, there's people come and people go, and I'm still sitting here for 4 hours. I run out of medication one time, and I sat for 5 days without any medication. I tried to explain to them what was going on, and the doctors that they have out there are foreign doctors, which does make a hill of beans, but the thing of it is they've lived here for 15 years and they don't even know how to speak English. And it's hard to relate to someone that can't speak English and they've been here for that period of time. So therefore, I think the amount of medical attention you get out there is limited to the fact of whether you have good communications with the doctor or not. And I had asked to be switched from one doctor to another, and they supposedly switched me from one doctor, and then I ended up with another doctor that was even worse to deal with than the one I had to begin with. So.
Have you had any contact with other VA facilities?
Oh, yes.
Or do you get the same sort of response?
Actually, I have been to one down in Florida and one in Lexington, Kentucky. They seem to be a little bit more advanced than what the hospital is at Dayton, VA. I really didn't, I was treated more like a human being than I was at the Dayton VA hospital. They were more apt to help me. But I can't drive from Dayton to Lexington to go to a VA hospital. I mean, that's just the way it comes down to it. I mean, because of economics. And I live on a fixed income now, so I can't make a trip every time I need medication or whatever. So I just finally came to terms with the fact that I'm better off going to an outside doctor, someone that knows me, someone that understands me, and someone that knows what my needs are. And I get better treatment that way.
Have you approached a congressman or anyone about that?
I have called every congressman. Matter of fact, I'll be quite honest with you. I called Congressman Hall's office one time and explained to the nurse, to one of his secretaries out there that I had been to see everybody and talk to everybody that I could, and I told her I was at my wits' ends and that I really felt that I would just soon blow my brains out as to have to live like I am. And her answer was pretty inappropriate because she told me, well, if you feel like you need to do it, then just go ahead and do it. So that's one of the reasons I'm very outspoken, and I'm very upset about this whole situation. And I know that if it's me, that's one thing. But I've seen it time and time and time again at the VA hospitals where individuals come in there and they have done everything they could do to keep this country safe. And they're given less respect than someone that comes in from another country and has never done anything for the United States. And really makes me upset when I start talking about it.
So really, it boils down to, this is an affront to your dignity as a veteran, that you're not being honored in the way that, for your service and your contribution and your sacrifice, in the way that we should treat our veterans.
Absolutely. I think that well, first of all, I don't think any congressman, any senator, any president should ever hold a government office until he's spent his time in the service. You can't preach on something you don't know anything about. And that's the thing that bothers me. People have made a lifetime career out of being a congressman or a senator or even a president, and they've never done anything to help our country except for be there with a lot of money to prove that they can make things happen because they do have the money to back them, which I find that rather ridiculous. A man's not valued on the amount of money that he has, it's on what he does for himself and his mankind alone, you know. So,
How do you think we could go about trying to rectify this?
as far as the VA goes,
What?
well, first of all, I think that the VA hires way too many foreign people to be doctors within the midst of all the veterans, because some of these doctors, I think, are just self-proclaimed doctors. I don't think they have the experience or the knowledge to be doctors on human beings. And I think that with the number of medical doctors that we have that comes out of medical schools and stuff like that. Now, Wright State supplies medical students for the VA hospital. But for special needs and stuff, they don't have them. They'll send you to another hospital because they don't have what it takes to do something for a certain individual or whatever.
Do you think that boils down to budget restrictions?
I think that they've put too much money in areas that it doesn't need to be.
Such as?
Well, just like in the news, like you've heard in the news where they spent $25 million upgrading the facility at the Dayton Airport. That's $25 million they could have used for the veterans to provide, you know, help and assistance for them. And now we're in an area where there's not enough jobs to go around, and if you have any disabilities whatsoever, you can't have a job anymore. And if you can't have a job, how are you to support yourself and your family? It's no wonder that we have so many veterans that are homeless and that are out here walking the streets late at night because they don't have a place to stay. But $25 million would have made, you know, it wouldn't have accomplished everything, but it would have helped.
Does the VA have any sort of retraining sort of facilities for injured veterans?
They've never approached me with it. If they do, I don't know anything about it if they do. I know that they wanted me to be involved in a pain management group that they had, but I was in physical therapy for over a year, and I think that's the biggest waste of money there ever was. Is physical therapy doesn't help you by a group of people getting together talking about their pain. I mean, there's certain things that should be done that aren't being done as far as helping the veterans that have problems, whether it be psychological, physical, or any other need that they have. I think that there should be outlets for them to go to and to seek help, but there's nothing being offered to them.
Would it be better if you had some sort of a stipend or voucher plan where perhaps a veteran could, instead of going to a VA facility, maybe go to a regular private hospital?
That would be a good start, but that's not the answer to everything. In my case, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've been on every pain medication that's known to mankind right now. I've been taking the substance Oxycontin for over a year now. I mean, it doesn't resolve my whole problem, but at least it allows me to function on a 12-hour basis, because it is a good drug if it's used properly. If it's not used properly, it's dangerous. And that's one of the problems that we have with medication, is some medications affect people in different ways. And I think that there's never been a real study done on who needs it and who doesn't need it. It's just been labeled as such and such a drug for such and such a thing. So therefore, You know, I'm on a medication that is considered dangerous, but it benefits me because I'm able to function. If I don't have my medications, whatever it was, whatever they had me on, I couldn't function at all. I was more or less bedridden. My knees are completely gone. And psychologically, it ruined me because I was always used to being on the go and doing things. I was an avid hunter. I was an avid dancer. I just loved life to the fullest. But whenever I finally broke down, I had nothing to look forward to anymore. And it was just one of those things where you couldn't do nothing about it.
How long has it been since you've had your replacement?
About 5 years. And they had to go back in because the other one didn't work properly. I couldn't get my leg to function the way it was supposed to, so they went back in and done another one. And to be quite honest with you, I've never had a minute's peace since I had it put in because it's never stopped hurting. And I think that's on an individual basis. Where I have it, there'll be another person that had both of them done and never had an ounce of trouble. So there's certain things that helps people and certain things that don't help people. If I had it all to do over again, I wouldn't have had it operated on at all. I believe I would have just suffered through it.
You feel it's worse now since treatment?
I do. And it's not because of the doctors, and it's not because of anything or anybody. It's just that's the way things are going to be, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Do you have any other suggestions for what you would like to see done?
Well, first of all, I think the wrong people are in charge of what happens to vets. Like I told you, I can't say you put a person in charge of the VA that has never had any career at all in the service. I mean, it's just like asking someone to make a cake and they've never baked a cake before. They don't know anything about it. You got a certain recipe to go by, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to mess it up. And that's what's going on now. You've got our congressmen and senators that's never been in the service, but somebody comes up with a bright idea of taking money away from the vets to give it to something else. And they don't realize how much that money is needed, and it's just not utilized properly.
Anything else that you think would help?
I think that you know, they're constantly putting money into everything, but they're not constantly putting money into the vet program itself. I think that they should be money set aside, and it should not be touched. It should be like Social Security. It should never be touched. But for some reason or other, the administration we have in there now, there's no money that's sacred. And there's going to have to be a limit put on everything. And I think the VA benefits is probably one of them too.
And I think you had mentioned that one of the things you thought would be appropriate was lifetime medical care for the injured veterans and the POWs. I know you mentioned as well.
The POWs, I was never so frustrated in my life as I was the last time I went to the VA to talk to them about a bill I had. There was an older gentleman there that had been a prisoner of war for 3 years. He had given himself 3 years of nothing but hell because he wanted to go to the service and support his country and the people within it. Yet he's there and they're challenging him to make him pay a bill, which I think, above all, I don't think that gentleman should ever have to pay a dime for anything. Just like anybody that was in the Second World War. If you was in the Second World War, was in any battle or any kind of conflict at all, I don't think you should have to pay any medical benefits whatsoever. You should not have to put out a dime. I mean, in my case, I've got a good benefit. I've got a good retirement that I fell off on. But there is other people out there that's not as fortunate as I am. And unfortunately, the rule is straight over. There's nobody that gets an opportunity to speak or at least say what's going on with them. And if you was a prisoner of war, I think you gave everything you could ever give in your whole life to make sure this country was safe. And for them, it's not dignified to ask those people to pay after they've paid so much. And I just can't realize that we live in a community that's so selfish. And And, you know, that's my feeling only. So, you know, maybe other people don't see it my way, but if you sit down and think about it and cipher it out a little bit, you'll see what I'm saying is true. And I don't think there's one person could argue with you if they would sit down and think about it.
Well, and I think the fact that you're saying you're not speaking just from your own personal experience, but you know others who have had similar experiences.
Yep.
And it's not an isolated case.
No, it's an ongoing case. I have a stepfather right now that was on the battlefield, and he lives on a very strict, limited income. And he goes to the VA because he didn't have a retirement to fall back on, and he thinks it's a godsend that he can go to the VA and that he only pays a certain amount for his medicine. But that doesn't leave him enough to live on. Him and my mother live on a very, very strict income. And if anything goes wrong at all, it's left up to me to make up the difference. And I live on a fixed income too, but you know, if they suffer, I have to suffer too. But he should not have to pay for those medical costs because he done all he could do for this country. And to know that there's thousands and thousands of people out there like that, it really bothers me, and it makes me feel bad that they're not going to get a chance to live life to the fullest because money. It all boils down to money. And money is not everything, but if you don't have it, you don't have anything.
As far as you're looking back on your time in the military, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to give you a chance to speak to it. Do you feel overall that it was a negative experience or a positive experience? Or if you were speaking to a young person today, what would you like them to know about the military?
If I were to speak in front of a graduating class of high school seniors today, I would tell them never go into the service. Because first of all, you get what you get, and you receive what you receive. But in the service, no matter what you do, you never receive what you really are owed. And I mean, it's not that I'm a turncoat, or it's changed my opinion about what I think about the United States in itself. I love the United States. And I know there's going to have to be people that will die for the United States. But I think that, you know, just putting yourself on the line and putting yourself out there to be killed is so useless. Because there's never been anything ever won or lost with an argument.
And are there any other things that we haven't mentioned today that we need to bring to the front?
Well, my daughter was born with a myelomaligma while I was in the service. Now, that was during a period of transition there where I was getting ready to go home, and I was getting ready to get out of the service. Well, my daughter was born, and I spent several days at the hospital because she had the same thing as an open spine. And I was made report back to the barracks. They made me live in my barracks, and my wife was left to take care of herself and the newborn baby, and I was given a general court-martial because of the fact that I had some problems. They didn't take into consideration that I had a newborn infant that had medical problems and needed to be back in the States. Instead of helping me, they done everything they could to harm me.
And how did that come about?
My daughter, when I come home on leave, my wife ended up pregnant. Whenever I told you, when Congressman Whalen got me rescheduled to go to another area, well, I was home for a little bit longer than what I was supposed to be, and I was reassigned to Germany. Well, my wife ended up being pregnant. And my daughter was born in Kaiserslautern, Germany. She has dual citizenship. And when she was born, she had this, the doctor told me she would never walk her whole life. Said that she would not be able to function as a regular child. And it really threw me for a loop. So I stayed at the hospital, and they wanted me to report back to the barracks, and I told them no. You know, my family comes before the service does whenever they need me. because that's in fact what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for my own family. Well, I was told that if I didn't report back to the barracks, then I would be facing a general court-martial. So I went ahead and let them give me a general court-martial.
So it was over an unauthorized leave, that's basically
Yes.
what it was.
It wasn't anything that I'd done to harm anybody, but they knew where I was at, but instead of working with me, they gave me a general court-martial. You know, there's certain circumstances where you have to say, hey, you know, the service is here, my responsibility is here. And that was one of the things that really bothered me throughout my time after I got done pulling my hitch in the service.
And did that stay as it was?
Well, I was given a general court-martial. I was given a or less than honorable discharge, but as soon as I got out of the service, they gave me an honorable discharge. If they hadn't switched it to honorable discharge, I would have lost my job at General Motors. So, but that was one of those incidents that will stick with me the rest of my life, to know that my own country done something to make my life a living hell. And it wasn't because I'd done anything to my country, it was because I was standing up for my own family. And my daughter, to this very day, has physical problems. She's got one foot that's longer than the other one. She's got scoliosis real bad. She was working a job. They just told her they don't have any work for her anymore because of her physical problems, which I think is a form of discrimination also. But that's another time and another story. So, but you know, as long as she lives, I'll remember what my service done for me.
What have we overlooked today that we need to cover?
Well, I think the service is like a job, and I think the service does help and bonds people, and there's a need for people in the service. You know, I have friends right now that wanted to go into the service, but they told them they were 100-pound overweight or 50-pound overweight or whatever. I think that if you want to go into the service, you should be given a 6-month trial period. And if you don't straighten up and you don't get yourself physically able to perform what you want to do or what they want you to do, then they should release you to go back into life again. But they just flat tell you they don't have a job or they don't have a place for you in the service if you don't meet their criteria. I think that anybody should have a right to go into the service, and that you should not be told that you can't go into the service. I think if you want to go, you should go. They should give you a trial period, and then if you can't cut the mustard, then release you to go back into society, and not give you a dishonorable discharge or anything like that, but just give you a discharge that will allow you to go back into society and function at your own will.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Nothing other than the fact that I do love and respect my country. And without my country, I'd never have the things that I have today. But it seems like our country is just steadily going downhill right now, and I don't know what's causing it. I don't think anybody does, but I think we're on a slow train going down a hill without any brakes. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.